For decades, Brad Pitt's romances have been front-page spectacles. 2 marriages, countless alleged affairs, and endless tabloid speculation have kept his name enshrined in Hollywood's pantheon of love stories. But behind all the headlines, there has always been one woman who stood apart. Now, after years of silence, Brad has confessed that she was the one who left the deepest mark on his heart. Was it the woman fans have always suspected, or a surprising name from his past? Let's follow his entire journey, from his first flames to the loves that shaped his life, and discover who Brad Pitt calls the love of his life. The early romances before fame. Before worldwide recognition. Brad Pitt was a small-town boy chasing a dream. Born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and raised in Springfield, Missouri, he wasn't a child of Hollywood, but of the American Midwest. His upbringing was rooted in church life, football games, and school theater productions. When he finally loaded his car and drove west to Los Angeles, he was just another young man hoping to break into an industry that devours dreamers. He took odd jobs, even wearing a giant chicken costume, to attract customers to local El Pollo places, while taking acting classes and waiting for his big break. Even then, his looks made him impossible to ignore, and his charm made him magnetic. One of his first relationships came before his name was known to millions. In 1986, he began dating British pop singer Sanita, who had already tasted fame with hits in the UK. Their relationship lasted almost 2 years, ending in 1988 before Brad's big breakthrough. Sanita would later describe him in glowing terms, calling him handsome, sweet, and fun. She spoke of his youth and warmth, remembering how affectionate and laid-back he was, someone who didn't yet carry the weight of celebrity. Years later, when she saw him in Thelma and Louise, she admitted feeling regret, saying, "My God, what have I done?" It was the kind of sentiment that would echo throughout his life. Women looking back on what could have been. Brad's next romance came with actress Jill Scullin, his co-star in the 1989 horror film Cutting Class. Their relationship was brief, but symbolized the first time Brad's love life intertwined with his work. Jill had previously been engaged to someone else, and her involvement with Brad caused some ripples in Hollywood's rumor circles. It ended as quickly as it began, but Brad was already moving in circles where romance and career overlapped effortlessly. Soon after, Brad was linked to E.G. Daily, a voice actress known for her distinctive performances in animation and film. E.G. would later reflect on her time with Brad and her true Hollywood story, describing him as deeply sensitive and intense. She saw in him not just physical beauty, but a visceral determination to succeed, an ambition that seemed to come from deep within. She believed he was destined for greatness and remembered that even during their brief relationship, his drive set him apart. It was clear to her that Brad wasn't content with being just another pretty face. He was a man aiming for something bigger. Their romance didn't last, but their bond did. They remained on good terms long after parting. In 1989, Brad's name became entangled in one of his first celebrity controversies. He was rumored to be seeing actress Robin Givens, who was then in the midst of a chaotic separation from heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson. According to Tyson's own memoir, Undisputed Truth, he once came home and found Brad in a car with Givens and even claimed to have caught them in bed. The story made headlines for its pure drama. Hollywood's future superstar allegedly involved with the wife of one of sports' most feared men. Givens later downplayed the juiciest details, insisting that while Tyson may have seen them together in a car, the bed story was fabricated. Whether the full truth will ever be known is doubtful, but the episode highlighted a theme that would follow Brad throughout his life. His relationships would never again be private matters. Another short but infamous chapter came when Brad briefly dated Christina Applegate, then one of television's brightest young stars, thanks to Married with Children. The two appeared together at the 1989 MTV Movie Awards. But in a twist straight out of a romantic comedy, Christina dumped Brad during the event for another man. Years later, when asked about it on Watch What Happens Live, she confirmed it was true, though she refused to name the other man. It was an embarrassing moment for Brad, though history would show he bounced back very well. The romance that followed was more serious and lasted much longer. At the end of 1989, Brad began dating actress Juliette Lewis, who was only 16 at the time, while he was 26. Their relationship lasted 4 years, a rare stability at a time when Brad's career was accelerating rapidly. They co-starred in films like Too Young to Die and California, and their chemistry was undeniable on and off screen. Brad would later call their time together one of the greatest relationships he'd ever had, telling Vanity Fair in 1995 that he still loved her 2 years after their breakup. Juliette, however, was less sentimental when reflecting on their past. In 2014, she told People she was tired of constantly being linked to Brad Pitt, emphasizing that she had moved on decades earlier. For her, being better known for her boyfriend than her career was a frustration that never faded. But for Brad, the relationship represented one of the first times he experienced true intimacy amid rising fame. It showed him what love could be, even under the intense gaze of the public. By the early 90s, Brad Pitt was no longer just a young actor. His role in Thelma and Louise had turned him into a sensation, the kind of breakthrough few achieve. Women swooned over his brief appearance as the charming drifter, and suddenly Brad Pitt was a household name. The romances of those pre-fame years painted a portrait of an affectionate, ambitious man capable of real connections. But it was clear everything was about to change. He was now one of Hollywood's most desired men, and the next chapter of his love life would play out on a global stage. If all those romances shaped a young actor still figuring out who he was, which woman would change him forever? The Gwyneth Paltrow years. The answer was Gwyneth Paltrow. In 1995, Brad Pitt met Gwyneth on the set of David Fincher's dark thriller 7. On screen, she played his wife. Off-screen, she became his partner in one of the most talked-about Hollywood romances of the decade. The two seemed perfectly matched. Gwyneth was elegant and intelligent, the daughter of actress Blythe Danner and director Bruce Paltrow, while Brad was the beating heart of the Midwest whose career was exploding upward. Their relationship quickly became Hollywood's main topic. At the 1996 Golden Globes, Brad openly called Gwyneth his angel and the love of his life during his acceptance speech. Fans melted at those words, convinced it was a love destined to last. Together, they walked red carpets, attended fashion shows and premieres, becoming one of the most glamorous couples of the 90s. Their faces appeared on magazine covers, and their style influenced fans worldwide. But their bond wasn't just surface level. Behind the scenes, their romance was deeply personal. Gwyneth would later reveal that Brad proposed to her during a trip to Argentina. Standing on a balcony under the night sky, Brad asked her to marry him. Though they discussed it before, the actual moment still surprised her, filling her with joy. She was only 24 at the time, but Brad believed she was the one. Their engagement dominated celebrity news. Fans speculated about when and where they would marry, what she would wear, and how they would balance rising careers with married life. But in June 1997, it all ended. Gwyneth broke off the engagement, admitting years later that she simply wasn't ready for such a commitment. She described herself as immature, saying she wasn't prepared for the weight of marriage to someone like Brad Pitt. Her father, Bruce Paltrow, was reportedly devastated. He adored Brad and saw him as a wonderful partner for his daughter. For Brad, the breakup was heartbreaking, but he never spoke negatively of Gwyneth. In interviews years later, he remained respectful, and Gwyneth also reflected warmly on their time together. She described their connection as major love at first sight and acknowledged that Brad had been one of the great loves of her life. In 2022, during a public conversation with him, the two laughed together like old friends, showing that any pain they had endured had long since healed. Their romance, though it ended before marriage, left a lasting mark on Brad Pitt's life. It showed him what it meant to love deeply, commit fully, and lose someone he believed was his future. It was a lesson in both passion and grief, one that would shape the man he would become. But when she left, another love story was about to define an entire era of Hollywood. The Golden Couple. When Brad Pitt met Jennifer Aniston, he was already one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces thanks to Legends of the Fall, Seven, and Fight Club. Jennifer, meanwhile, had become America's sweetheart as Rachel Green on Friends. In the mid-90s, their paths crossed for the first time through their managers. But at that point, nothing came of it. She later said her first impression of Brad was that he was just a sweet, normal guy from Missouri. Timing changed everything. In 1998, both were single. Jennifer had just ended her relationship with actor Tate Donovan, and Brad's engagement to Gwyneth Paltrow had ended a year earlier. This time, when their managers introduced them, sparks flew. Jennifer later told Diane Sawyer that their first date was easy and fun, a connection that felt natural rather than forced. Very quickly, the media noticed. In September 1999, they made their red carpet debut as a couple at the Emmys. Brad wore sleek silver sunglasses, and Jennifer shone in a sparkling dress. Fans went wild. This wasn't just a Hollywood romance. It was the Hollywood romance. The beautiful TV star and the golden movie idol together looked like destiny. In November, at a Sting concert in New York, they announced their engagement. Jennifer showed off a stunning diamond and platinum ring designed by Sylvia Damiani, with reports saying Brad spent 7 months perfecting the design. Their wedding on July 29, 2000, cemented their place as the golden couple. Held in Malibu, it was as lavish as it was romantic. 200 guests, a gospel choir, fireworks, and nearly 50,000 flowers. Jennifer's father, John Aniston, proudly walked her down the aisle, later telling reporters how beautiful his daughter looked. Some estimates put the event's cost near $1 million, making it one of Hollywood's most extravagant weddings of the era. The years that followed saw Brad and Jen embody the idea of Hollywood perfection. On red carpets, they were inseparable, often holding hands and laughing. In 2001, Brad even made a memorable guest appearance on Friends, playing a character who hated Rachel Green, Jennifer's character. The meta humor delighted fans, and the episode became one of the series' most iconic. Together, they launched Plan B Entertainment alongside producer Brad Gray. It would become a powerhouse, producing films like The Departed and 12 Years a Slave. At the time, though, the company was seen as another example of their couple power. But beneath the perfect exterior, cracks were forming. In 2003, Jennifer gave an interview to W Magazine where she hesitated to call Brad the love of her life. She admitted she wasn't sure about the phrase, though she called him a great love and said they had something special. For fans, it was a surprising admission. Rumors began circulating about Brad's connection with Angelina Jolie on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and soon the narrative began to shift. In January 2005, Brad and Jennifer announced their separation after nearly 5 years of marriage. Their joint statement asked for privacy and denied that the split was due to tabloid speculation. But the press refused to let go. In March, Jennifer filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized in October. Jennifer's interview with Vanity Fair later that year was raw and emotional. She admitted the breakup left her split open, forcing her to feel everything in the hardest way possible. She described the grief, sadness, and frustration of being reduced to a tabloid triangle. Photos of Brad and Angelina in Kenya with her children had emerged just weeks after the separation, and Jennifer admitted seeing them was painful. Yet even in her pain, she refused to vilify Brad, insisting she wasn't defined by their breakup or the narrative the press imposed on her. For years, fans couldn't let go of the idea of Brad and Jennifer together. Their marriage had symbolized a golden era of Hollywood celebrity culture where two beloved stars came together and seemed untouchable. Their divorce shattered that illusion, leaving millions of fans heartbroken alongside them. If Jennifer Aniston represented Hollywood's fairy tale, Angelina Jolie would soon represent its fire, passion, chaos, and a romance that burned brightest until it went out. From passion to fall. In 2003, Brad Pitt signed on to star opposite Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He was still married to Jennifer Aniston, but rumors of on-set chemistry began almost immediately. The film, about two married assassins who discover they've been hired to kill each other, required Brad and Angelina to share long hours of stunts, intimacy, and high-tension action sequences. Their chemistry was undeniable, and the whispers grew louder. Angelina would later insist they didn't fall in love immediately, but discovered a connection during filming. She described how they found joy in working together, laughing, and becoming a real team. For her, the turning point came when she realized she looked forward to work every day simply because Brad was there. By the end of filming, both admitted they felt something beyond friendship. In January 2005, Brad and Jennifer announced their separation. By summer, Angelina was photographed with Brad and her children in Kenya, sparking a media frenzy. In 2006, Angelina was pregnant with Brad's child, and in May she gave birth to their daughter Shiloh. Soon after, Brad formally adopted Angelina's two children, Maddox and Zahara, who both took the name Jolie Pitt. In 2007, they added another son, Pax. And in 2008, Angelina gave birth to twins Knox and Vivian. Suddenly, Brad, who had once been reluctant about fatherhood, was the patriarch of a family of 6 children. The couple became a global phenomenon, nicknamed Brangelina by the press. They weren't just actors, but humanitarian figures, traveling to refugee camps, adopting internationally, and speaking on global issues. Their presence dominated magazines, TV, and online coverage. Every move they made was watched and analyzed, from red carpets to family vacations. In 2014, Brad and Angelina married at their French estate, Chateau Miraval. The ceremony was intimate, with their children playing central roles. Angelina's dress was famous for being embroidered with the children's drawings, and their vows were written with the kids' help. For a moment, it looked like the fairy tale had found its second chapter. But cracks began to appear. In 2015, the couple starred together in By the Sea, a film directed by Angelina about a troubled marriage. Many later saw it as an eerie foreshadowing of their own relationship. In September 2016, it all collapsed. Angelina filed for divorce, citing family health. Reports quickly emerged of an altercation on a private plane, with allegations that Brad had become physical with one of the children. Brad denied harming any of his children, and the FBI, as well as Child Protective Services, closed their investigations without charges. The divorce, however, was brutal and dragged on for years. Custody battles extended into 2024, with financial disputes and the fate of Chateau Miraval at the center. The relationship that once captivated the world had become one of Hollywood's bitterest separations. For Brad, the Jolie years were transformative. He had built a family, experienced the chaos of raising 6 children under constant scrutiny, and seen his private life weaponized in ways few could imagine. For Angelina, it was a chapter of passion and pain, one that ended with her vowing to put her children first above all else. The story of Brad and Angelina wasn't just a romance. It was a cultural phenomenon that reshaped how the media covered celebrity couples. It represented both the heights of passion and the depths of collapse, showing how love under the spotlight can crumble under its own weight. After 2 of Hollywood's most famous love stories ended in heartbreak, could Brad Pitt ever find stability, or was he destined to keep chasing love under the public eye? New faces but old shadows. After the chaos of his separation from Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt disappeared from the dating scene for a while. The divorce, custody battles, and public fallout had made him cautious. For the first time in years, Brad withdrew from the relentless spotlight, focusing on his children, and his work. But the world never stopped watching. Every time he was seen with someone new, the whispers started again. In 2018, rumors linked him to MIT professor and architect Neri Oxman. Oxman, renowned in design and technology fields, represented something very different from Brad's past partners. She was intellectual, respected in academic circles, and accomplished in her own right. Speculation began after Brad was seen visiting her at MIT, with insiders suggesting he was inspired by her intelligence. Some said they admired each other as friends. Others suggested more. Oxman herself denied any romantic involvement, though she praised him as someone who still carried the timeless aura of classic cinema. If there was a relationship, it ended quietly, but it showed Brad was drawn to women outside Hollywood's usual orbit. In 2020, his name was linked to German model Nicole Paczorowski. The model, decades younger than Brad, was seen with him in France at Chateau Miraval, the very estate he still co-owned with Angelina Jolie. Their connection seemed casual, with reports describing it more as a fling than a committed romance. Sources insisted they enjoyed each other's company, but were never truly together. By October, just months after the rumors started, it was over. Later, in 2022, after model Emily Ratajkowski separated from her husband, she was seen spending time with Brad. Reports described their encounter as casual and fun, more about companionship than commitment. Friends hinted at mutual attraction and shared interests, including art, but neither Brad nor Emily pushed the narrative forward. Within weeks, the whispers faded, and the connection dissolved before it became anything more. Then came Inés de Ramón, the jewelry designer who had recently separated from actor Paul Wesley, entered Brad's life quietly. By late 2022, the two were seen together at a Bono concert, and insiders confirmed they had been dating for a few months. Unlike those other rumored flings, this one grew more stable over time. They celebrated his 59th birthday together in December 2022, sharing dinner with friends at an Italian restaurant in Hollywood. Reports described them as relaxed, comfortable, and genuinely happy in each other's company. In February 2024, Inés had moved into Brad's home in Los Angeles. Sources close to the couple revealed their relationship had become serious, more stable than anything Brad had experienced since his marriage to Angelina. In September 2024, they made their red carpet debut at the Venice Film Festival, walking hand in hand. For fans, it was a striking image. Brad Pitt, so long associated with heartbreak and failed marriages, smiling beside someone who seemed to bring him peace. Yet even as he moved forward with new love, the shadow of his past lingered. For years, Brad had been tied to Jennifer Aniston in the public imagination, and every new relationship he entered was inevitably compared to the one that came before. No matter how many women he dated, no matter how serious the bond, the question always returned. Had Brad truly moved on from Jennifer? If the years with Angelina brought passion and turmoil, and the years that followed brought fleeting romances, why does Jennifer Aniston remain the name that fans, and perhaps Brad himself, can never let go? The love that never faded. In 2007, just 2 years after their divorce, Brad spoke to a magazine and revealed something few expected. Jen and I still have a deep friendship, he said, and we share a lot of life together that isn't erased in any way. It was an admission that despite everything, their bond hadn't been completely broken. For Jennifer, the pain of the divorce had been real, but even she told Vanity Fair in 2006 that she still loved Brad and always would. Time passed, and the narrative around them shifted. In 2017, after Brad's separation from Angelina Jolie, Jennifer's name was suddenly linked to his again. Fans whispered about reconciliation, tabloids speculated endlessly, and the possibility of a reunion became a cultural obsession. The truth, however, was more nuanced. In February 2019, Brad attended Jennifer's 50th birthday party. It was a private moment, but the fact that he was there made headlines worldwide. For fans, it was proof their connection had endured. In January 2020, the two shared a warm hug backstage at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, where Jennifer had just won for the morning show. Brad, who had also won that night, grabbed her hand and smiled as she walked away. The photos went viral instantly, with fans dissecting every gesture and glance, convinced it revealed lingering affection. Later that year, the two reunited again for a virtual table read of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a charity event with an all-star cast. Brad and Jennifer played characters who flirted and exchanged suggestive lines, and their natural chemistry made the moment unforgettable. Fans melted, convinced the sparks had never died. Jennifer later spoke about it with ease, saying they were friends, it was fun, and there was no awkwardness. Yet for viewers, the chemistry between them was undeniable. Even though both insisted they were just friends, the sense of unfinished business persisted. Jennifer continued to speak kindly of Brad in interviews, describing him as someone she would always care about. In 2006, just a year after their divorce, she had already said, "I love Brad. I really love him. I will love him for the rest of my life." Those words carried weight and still resonate years later. For Brad, the years with Jennifer represented a kind of stability none of his later relationships could replicate. Their marriage had collapsed under the pressure of fame and the pull of new passion. But in hindsight, it had been one of the rare times his personal life felt grounded. When he spoke of Jennifer as a true friend years later, it was clear he valued her presence not just as an ex-partner, but as someone who had shaped him. For the public, their story remains one of Hollywood's greatest what-ifs. The golden couple separated by circumstances, forever linked by history. Fans still debate whether they should have given it another chance, whether they should have fought harder to stay together. And now, with Brad admitting in recent years that Jennifer Aniston was the love that never disappeared, the story has come full circle. It's not about whether they will reunite romantically. At this point, both have built separate lives, found other loves, and weathered the storms of fame. But by confessing she was the one, Brad acknowledged what millions of fans have believed all along, that Jennifer Aniston was, and perhaps always will be, the love of his life. The man behind the confessions. For all the headlines about Brad Pitt's romances, the truth is that the man himself has changed profoundly over the years. Behind the red carpets and tabloid photos, Brad endured struggles that forced him to confront who he really was. After his separation from Angelina Jolie, he opened up about his battles with alcohol and the work he did in therapy. He admitted he had to face his flaws head-on, acknowledging how his choices had affected not only his relationships, but also his children. Sobriety gave him clarity, and therapy gave him the tools to finally speak about love, without hiding behind charm or denial. What makes his confession so striking isn't just that he named Jennifer Aniston as the love of his life, but that he did it after decades of growth. It wasn't the impulsive declaration of a young actor, but the measured reflection of a man who had lived, lost, and learned. This admission carried the weight of honesty and maturity, proving that sometimes it takes years, even decades, to understand the depth of a connection. Brad's journey shows that true love, even when it ends, can remain the defining story of a life. For decades, Brad Pitt's name has been written in headlines not just for his films, but for the women who shared his life. From the carefree romances of his youth, to the glamour of red carpets with Gwyneth Paltrow, from the fairy tale marriage with Jennifer Aniston to the fiery passion and eventual collapse of his marriage to Angelina Jolie. His story has been as complex and dramatic as any movie he's ever starred in. Through it all, there have been new faces, brief connections, and fleeting moments of happiness. But one bond has continued to capture fans' imaginations, as Brad has finally admitted his own heart to. Jennifer Aniston was more than a chapter in his life. She was the love that shaped him, the one he still holds close long after everything else has faded. Their relationship may never return to what it was, but the respect, warmth, and quiet affection they continue to show speaks volumes about the depth of their connection. Do you believe Jennifer Aniston has always been Brad Pitt's greatest love? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and join us for more unforgettable stories from Hollywood history.